Hi, it's Craig and Sarah. We just thought we'd tell you about the pictures of our honeymoon um, so you could hear it instead of reading it.
Here I am on the train on the way from Rome to Cinque Terra.
And this is our first view of Vernazza, the town we stayed in Cinque Terra, little village kind of thing.
As we're walking to find our hotel, we discovered just how colorful all of the homes were.
You can see we took our hiking packs. We knew there were going to be lots and lots of steps in this town. Lots of tourists from boats and trains came in for the day, and so here we are just kind of walking to the hotel down this narrow street, which is really the only street in the whole town.
Here I am standing on the balcony of our hotel room, looking out over an old castle, which has the restaurant nearby us, the top of the castle, which you see underneath the awning.
This is the harbor, a little tiny harbor. Everybody in town owns a boat, which is the really main way to travel there since there's no cars. And this is kind of the outdoor patio, Sarah by her favorite hydrangea bush.
Here we are alongside the harbor. There were lots of outdoor restaurants where we ate each night.
And this is the small beach. It's actually the only sandy beach in all 5 towns, so we were pretty lucky.
And here we are making our way through the tiny little winding streets to get to our hotel room.
We had a great balcony with great views of the town of Monte Rosso and the ocean, and this boat which dumps off tourists every 25 minutes. So some people just boat from town to town.
I'm hungry, looking forward to dinner.
The Italian women hang their clothes out the windows and shout across the square to each other, and in the square are tons and tons of cats who hang out by the restaurants.
Craig befriended this particular cat, naming him Cassius.
This is a lean and hungry look, like from Shakespeare. And that's Sarah, if you can see her underneath the tree, eating at our first outdoor restaurant at Cinque Terra.
Craig and Cassius making friends.
It's just our first evening along the beach with colorful buildings behind us.
Taking a little stroll in the evening, looking for ice cream.
And there were great sunsets each night. This was the first night. The best sunset was actually on the third one, but we just spent the evenings along this dock kind of watching the sun go down. Also, right by here was a restaurant high up above the water, and people would throw bread down into the water for the fish.
We found a strange finding underneath the church. In this little alcove, there was a foosball table.
I had to climb out on some rocks to get some good night pictures. And then that town in the distance you can see on the hill is Monte Rosso. That's the next town north. And we started out on our hike.
Sarah showing how many stairs it is to get around our town.
So there's these trails between all the towns, and we had to hike kind of up the hill, up these little roads, and up the hill and out of town for about an hour and a half to get to the next one south. So this is the first view of our town from above, and that's the whole thing you're seeing. This is on our way south to the next town of Cornelia, which you can see on the hill above Sarah's left shoulder.
Craig's trying to show just how steep it was over the cliffs. As we're walking, most of these hiking trails kind of hug the sides of the cliff, so if you step just a foot or two to the edge, you're going straight down.
Lots of steps, narrow trails. It was not very well maintained between these two. But what's neat about this picture is you can see 2 of the towns in a row on those hilltops jutting out into the water. So it's Cornelia, and then south of that is Manarola. Again, Cornelia, Manarola, and if you squint you can see the town that I call Rigmarole farthest to the south.
Halfway along the trail, there was a bar.
Nothing else anywhere close. And there's Cornelia and Manarola.
Cornelia was a bit larger than Vernazza, but it also had the same bright colored buildings.
It's kind of up on a hill on a cliff rather than right on the water like Vernazza is. And on the other side of town were dozens and dozens of steps that went straight down to the train station. And this is Manarola.
As we came into town from this direction, you can see back behind us hundreds of people laying out on the rocks, sunbathing.
There's these staircases that go to nowhere all over the place. Okay, this is actually a view of our hotel room. That's Sarah in the white and red up on our balcony. You can see her a little better here in this one.
Craig treated himself to a whole fish for dinner one night, and afterward treated Cassius to the leftover tail of the fish.
I had to sneak it out. And then we had another nice sunset. It was cooler in the evening. This was the night a storm was rolling in. It's kind of neat to see in the middle of the night rolling in. But that didn't stop us from getting ice cream. And this is actually in the town of Monte Rosso, looking back at our town of Vernazza.
Here we found a little organ grinder making some music. Craig enjoyed his music and bought a CD to bring home with us.
Monte Rosso is kind of the beachy resort town, but there are two sections of it, and he was kind of right in between the two. We walked around, did some shopping. This is the only town that has cars in it. And then we hiked the long, very steep trail back to Vernazza.
Again, you can see just how on the edge these narrow little trails are. This was one of my favorite things along the way. It's kind of a roller coaster track that carries grapes down from all of the vineyards high up in the cliffs down to the towns.
That kind of shows you how steep some of the steps were that go up and down the hills of the trail, which a lot of times are so narrow you can't pass people coming the other way, so you just gotta wait or get real friendly.
I like this little bridge. We saw a couple of these along the trails.
This person just lives in the middle of absolutely nowhere. It's about a 45-minute walk from anything.
The water was crystal blue from above, especially along the edges of the coast.
There you can see the edge of Vernazza, which is our town, and if it was bigger, you could see all the other towns too.
Up in the hills, we discovered more cats. These little cat hangouts were complete with small little tents and food for people to share with the cats as they pass their way.
Here's some great overhead views of Vernazza, our little town. I just love these shots from up on the path. See how colorful it really is.
In the evening, a lot of folks would climb up on the trail to get night shots of the town.
So once again, we ate outside in Vernazza, right on the water. It's very nice every day, and we saw the local kids. There's only about 10 of them playing in one of the boats up on the beach. And this was a very familiar sight. 2 or 3 times a day we got some ice cream, which was excellent always.
This was our last night in Cinque Terra, and we were fortunate to have our best sunset of the week. The next morning, we got up and hopped off board a train for our last final stop of the honeymoon in Venice.
So soon we'll have the pictures of those up, and we'll be telling you about them too. That's all. Bye-bye.
Bye.